Often without realising it, our frequent forays into social media produce what is referred to as user-created content, or UCC. Although the practice of sharing our lives is pretty much commonplace these days, the term UCC has only emerged in recent times as a way to avoid the baggage associated with its predecessor, user-generated content. UGC gained traction in the business world and with economists, and unfortunately was at the heart of many discussions around exploitative labour practices and free content for organisations. With that as a backdrop, academics and professionals began to think around the complex relationship of UCC differently. This approach was to develop the discussion of audience and user involvement with content production beyond labour practices alone, but build on the earlier concepts of what Shirky refers to as crowdsourcing, Tapscott and Williams' term Wikinomics, and Anderson observes as the long tail. To begin, we can think around UCC from three perspectives. First is creative content, including videos, photography or images, text, and audio that are often distributed on pioneering platforms such as YouTube, SoundCloud, Flickr, or blogs, for example. Second are small-scale tools which enable users to operate and modify pre-existing datasets that are often built from creative content. Most times we use mobile apps as the interface to operationalize small-scale tools. Thirdly, there is collaborative content, which is often undertaken by small groups of users across open source software, for example Apache. A great example to think of here is Wikipedia. The practice of sharing creative content across social media platforms is common practice amongst many connected users. The second distribution model of small-scale tools is generally reserved for those who have an aptitude towards coding and developing, and who are generally lead users within their online communities and networks. This practice is not commonplace, but nonetheless a very popular way for users to create content under the UCC framework. While the ultimate goal for much of the content production during the late 2000s and the early second decade of this century was to embrace collaborative content models and release the authorship from the institution and to the audience, this is not so much the case now. Producers and consumers of content have passed through the utopianistic, post-structuralist phase of what Barthes refers to as the death of the author, and towards a more critical understanding of how both stakeholder groups can add value given their past experience and field of expertise. It is now a blend of user-generated creative content with the professional input of media folk to create useful UCC. For example, if radio producers in Sao Paulo wanted to do a long-form feature on the social history of Sydney, they might travel to Australia and spend some time researching the place, or perhaps they could utilise affordances of online communities and engage in co-creation. Through co-creation, they might start with a crowdsourced platform like the Dictionary of Sydney, for example, which contains a beautiful blend of personal historical contributions from local citizens, along with a comprehensive curation by the traditional cultural institutions, including the Sydney Library. The radio producers could then contact those people who have contributed content to the Dictionary of Sydney and engage in some kind of knowledge exchange through what Pam McKenzie and others term collaborative content. While some organisations avoid UCC collaborative production, there are numerous projects that promote the advantages of working with their audiences and users. Some of the better examples include the BBC's Voices and Video Nation projects, and from a social advocacy perspective, Engage Media's Papuan Voices project. We can argue that user-created content is a complex ecosystem of users, both creating and contributing content to open source platforms, which are often accessed through small-scale tools. But we need to pay attention to the political economy perspective of UCC. This includes the politics that determine how UCC is created, published, and distributed, while the economic perspective takes into account the exploitative nature of collaborative content creation. In the first phase of UCC, there was a broad perception that it was a cheap and easy way for organisations to acquire content for free. This of course attracted harsh criticism on the role of UCC. The other side of this argument suggests that this is a way for unique forms of knowledge and expertise to emerge on niche and specialty topics and ideas. in the UCC environment, it is more useful to approach collaborative production from the perspective that each stakeholder group, the professionals and the enthusiasts, can contribute unique attributes to the whole. In these sorts of arrangements, UCC produces more sincere and universal content. The content has perspectives from all producers, making it more appealing to niche users and larger audiences alike. There is more appropriate labour model where users are remunerated through increased knowledge exchanges, exposure to larger audiences, or even money or goods in some cases. And we see the production of content that demonstrates finer nuance and detail. While we can lean on past descriptions of UGC, it is important to remember that the political economy of this activity has been honed and refined to demonstrate the expertise of those involved, create more useful and authentic content, and ensure the production of content is now ethical to some extent.